Welcome to Design Thinking Games, a gaming and user experience podcast. Card-carrying UXers Tim Broadwater and Michael Schofield examine the player experience of board games, pen and paper role-playing games, live-action games, and video games. Play through the backlog on your podcatcher of choice and on the web at designthinkinggames.com.
So I don't know if you've ever been to Disney World or Disneyland and gone on the Pirates of the Caribbean, but all of those skeletons whose like jaws are just like literally like hanging down on the hinge of bone. That's probably what I look like when I'm like sleeping. Or if you've ever seen like the Mummy when like Imhotep's chin just like distends from his face so he can like exhale locusts. That's what I do when I sleep. So I tape
you exhale locusts like the Mummy or Candyman.
So oh my God, yes. So I tape my mouth shut. There's a product that is designed for this. It's like the Breathe Right strip for taping your mouth shut, but it's just tape. Yeah. Yeah, you should join me in this.
I'm good. But that does make me, that the Pirates of the Caribbean, specifically the skeletons that are in it on the ride, makes me think of my favorite Dungeons and Dragons spell, which is Skeleton Crew.
Oh my God, yes.
Are you familiar with the spell?
I am, but for our listeners who just cold opened here. Yeah, like
I'm going to just butcher it if you want.
No, let's do it.
I think it is that you summon like so many D6 of skeletons. They can't fight, but they have their seamanship or navigating, sailing, whatever that skill check is.
Yeah.
Is like your if you're a wizard and your casting is based on intelligence, it's your like intelligence modifier is their plus that they get. So if you're a really intelligent wizard and you need, and the use of the spell is like, crap, I don't know how to sail, but I can summon an undead crew to sail for me, and that's literally all they can do is sail.
Yeah, you're right. The skeleton cannot speak, attack, or even defend themselves, but they are proficient in navigator's tools. I love it. That's
I literally was at a gaming convention once. I'm sorry, this is just too good of a story.
No, do it.
Like, I was at a gaming convention once, and we were playing a high-level Pathfinder Society First Edition scenario, right? And the scenario was we busted a dude out of jail because we needed to get them to lead us to where a treasure was at sea, and you fight a kraken or sea monster. But there was a point to where everyone on this game happened to just be a sorcerer or a wizard or like a witch or an oracle, but like no muscle, right?
Yeah.
And so we got to this point to where there were all these dead people at this prison at sea, and we had to pilot a ship, and we had dead people on the boat. So we just started sailing, and then immediately a storm came, and we were fucked. And I was like, oh wait, this is exactly why I have this spell. I never get the chance to use it. And I literally had it memorized on my wizard to cast.
Oh, that's perfect.
Skeletal Crew.
Wait, so you had that prepared,
the DM,
but you had that prepared, but you haven't used it ever?
Like a bunch of, I just like that it summoned a bunch of skeletons. I thought that was cool.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't really have any more thought to it than, hey, I want to summon like 20 skeletons, you know? But yeah, I had it memorized, and the game master was so pissed off because it like broke the whole storm, like a whole part of battling and skill checks and who's manning the boat while you're battling, and it just made it, we didn't even have to do half the work.
Oh my God, that's amazing. Yeah, I was DMing a my weekly table at the moment, which is going on like 3 years now, is the Quarriors. And they ended up sailing around, and I like homebrews and rule extensions and all that. So I had this naval like 48-page like supplement that I got, and the entire intention was that, look, these guys are going to be like trapped out, or not trapped, they're going to be at sea for an extended period of time, and and they have to deal with like a mutinous crew, and there's like every so often like there might be some like weird like I don't know, maybe we'll roll a dragon turtle, but I also had just picked up
oh my god, it's been so long since I've heard the word dragon turtle.
I picked up this like D&D supplement from I'm not looking at my books right now, so the actual name escapes me, but it's all of the Greek gods and Greek myths given D&D stats or whatever, and it's an official work. But I just picked that up, and it has some like cool ass Hydra and stuff like that. And so
dude, there's a Hydra a bone Hydra that's actually in the Hades game I'm playing right now.
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah. So like anyway, so they were fighting like a Hydra, and I was like, these guys are screwed, right? Because they have like a wizard and whatever. And my intention isn't really to kill the party, but my intention is that every encounter is deadly and exhausts resources. And it's my secret pride to like really like harass my players with a delightfully weird encounter that isn't just like, you know, grind and chop, but you know, it's whatever. So anyway, I had this, you know, like 9-headed Hydra, which I guess is the stock definition of a Hydra, emerging out from the depths of the ocean. They are on a sloop that is in eyesight of shore, but it's just a smear at the horizon. There's a couple of rounds in which folks are, you know, trying to shoot at it or whatever, and they realize that, ooh, this isn't doing super well. And then,
do Hydras have 9 heads or is it 8 heads?
It's a great question. It should be 9 heads. And the idea is that every time you chop one off, and I say this with a caveat that I'm literally not looking at anything. This is just from memory. Mm-hmm. When you chop one off, there is a percentage chance that 2 new heads regrow. I think it's a dice roll. It's possible that it's immediate, but I don't like that. I like the idea that, hey, sometimes you hit it just right and it's not going to happen unless you like cauterize that wound. But anyway, yeah, so this is a major monster. The campaign is, you know, it's about the return of like an eldritch chthonic, you know, deep mind. And it's weird, right? It's like it's my thing. And my intention is to like harass my players, and again, in this sort of like delightful encounter. And then they were like, hey, this sloop has like a really like long and narrow bow with I do not remember the proper term for it. Basically, like a really long, like spear-like tip to it, right? Kind of like a narrow, like wind-cutting decorative thing to which like one of the sails attaches. And they just were like, all right, we'll figure out how to survive this next part, but we're gonna ram the Hydra.
Nice.
And yeah, it was great.
As one does.
Of course. Yeah. So that's that's our tale of fucking up or players fucking up a dungeon master's sailing like adventure.
Yeah, it's funny because I mean I think we were talking about you know, we're both very versed I think in a lot of different types of role-playing games, right? Like tabletop and probably video games, as well as kind of your pen and paper, Dungeons and Dragons, White Wolf, that kind of stuff. And that's cool that you are running it that way. Design Thinking Games is a proud affiliate of Hunt a Killer. Enter the world of Hunt a Killer in their newest murder mystery season, Mallory Rock. This realistic murder mystery game delivers high-quality, handcrafted evidence that brings a fictional case to life. Can you solve a mystery with Hunt a Killer? Go to designthinkinggames.com/huntakiller or click on the banner at the bottom of our website.
So I run a few games. That's my weekly table, my virtual table, I guess.
What do you use for a virtual table? Like, what do you do?
So
how's it work?
I do just a Zoom call, and we use a tool called Owlbear, which is a really neat web app that is for free. Nice. And increasingly it's it's a virtual tabletop and stuff like that. I've tried Roll20, and I think Foundry is the other one. Is that right?
There's a bunch, actually. There's more than that.
Yeah, like
I like Roll20. I've used it for years.
I think the work required to set it up is like in a funny way, it's more like game design or development than I want my Dungeons and Dragons to be. Because the beauty of
that's interesting because I don't see it that way at all.
Don't you have to like set things up like oh, here's like the wall and they no.
So can I tell you my experience?
Yeah.
Just
because I don't know a ton about it.
Yeah, so I do like a lot online play, society organized play with Starfinder and Pathfinder, and I use Roll20, and I eventually ended up paying for the Pro version, and the reason why is because they actually have some really cool advanced tools where you can import and export games mechanics and stuff. So if you set up stuff like documents or maps or creatures or whatever, you can just take them from one game to another and you don't have to keep re-entering them, which is nice. But then I've always found it to be like, and this is great that we're talking about it, it's an instructional design problem is what Roll20 faces. The thing is Roll20 has, if you just want to start drawing on a map with a pencil and have people chat and roll, that's all you need it for. I mean, you can do that so easily, and it's just the click of like, it's a toolbar. But if you want to go to the point of, starting making macros for creatures and then saving them and graphics and special, you can take it to that next level, which isn't bad for character sheet tracking or whatever. But then you can go even further and do like light dynamics and physics and like crazy stuff.
Yeah, so you can go deep, but you don't have to, right? Like
And I think they do a bad job. And I don't mean this I pay for their product, so I like it. But I'm like, my perspective would be from a user experience, like an onboarding person, like learning a new game or learning a new system or piece of software. I mean, if they just presented it that way, that's a trainer-friendly, kind of user-friendly way to where it's like, hey, low-tech, this is how you start using it today.
Yeah.
And you can just draw and do stuff. But when you want to start getting more advanced, you can import creatures and save stuff and move it around. But then you can get to a whole level of like 3D modeling and light dynamics and physics,
Yeah, it's interesting. I think I
have to check out Owlbear though, because I mean I've not heard of it. So
it's called like Owl. So like I'll plug it. I think it's pretty impressive. It's owlbear.rodeo. Like that's the TLD domain. Like so Owlbear
RODEO rodeo.
Yeah, owlbear.rodeo, and it works. And so like as kind of like an engineer, I appreciate this for what it is, and what it is that it looks like a couple of folks are like basically designed a web app that works totally in the browser with your browser local storage and WebSockets to produce what I think is like a really relatively easy to use like virtual tabletop. The reason that I went to it originally, like it's silly, is because I like
they have, oh my gosh, dude, they have YouTube tutorials on how to use it.
So the other thing that's kind of like fascinating, is that it's totally free and it's 100% funded through Patreon. And so like as a model of like just a couple of people and their software product or their web app, it's pretty neat. And I was drawn to it because I like the soundscapes of a tabletop RPG, right? Because I have I like ambiance. I like kind of like the background music as a way to really set the tone. And Owlbear has lets you basically stream audio from another tab in your browser. So like I have like tabletop audio.
That is cool.
Yeah, and so
that is super cool.
And so I've used it for a couple things. So I use it for D&D.
You have a Do you have a Pandora playlist or a Spotify playlist?
That's a great question. Yes, I did. I did before what I consider like leveling up, and here's what I mean. I used something called it's not really leveling up, but there's something called there's an app, another web app, just like individual created called Tabletop Audio, like tabletopaudio.com, and there are
I am very familiar with it.
Yeah,
actually.
and so like in there, so most people I think like find a scene and play it, and it'll have some background music with a little bit of like sound effects. For instance, there's one that I really like called like Water Keep instead of Water Deep, so Water Keep Night. And you hear like a little bit of music, but you can also hear carriages kind of like rolling across the cobble. But what's really cool is he's made an entire soundboard part of that app where you can construct custom audio. And that's what I do now. And I support the Tabletop Audio person. I gotta tell you, I don't really know who the name of the creator or anything. It's patreon.com/tabletop audio, but I pay for that. I think it's excellent. And it's just wonderful. So that's what I do rather than Spotify. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I know that one of the things that we've been interacting with or experiencing with the podcast and social media is there's this whole big like online community of like gamers and gamer developers and pixel artists and cosplayers and just like people who support each other.
Like they're like small creators, right? They're not just game designers,
they
but they're
support
like
the community and they put money into the community and they help back each other's stuff because they're kind of interested in it, but they also want to help someone else because they're in a situation. And I love that about kind of this, the people that we're interacting with, through social media online.
A well-designed war game is hard to make, but if you've listened to the show for any length of time, you know we stand Hell Let Loose, this realistic, immersive World War II shooter that not only requires that you play well, but that your squad plays well together, and well with other squads. There's no HUD, there are no scopes, one shot and you're down if you can't fortify, flank, and suppress as a team, you lose. And because of that, in my opinion, Hell Let Loose deserves many game awards. If that rings true and you want to help the show, consider downloading it through Gamersgate. No, not that Gamersgate. The Gamersgate that came before the controversy that hijacked the name. Gamersgate is the world's largest online store for PC and Mac games, more than 4,500 of them. And if you download Hell Let Loose or another game through designthinkinggames.com/gamersgate, it'll help us keep the lights on. I'll see you on the beach. So, one of the things that this TTRPG community helps people do is like create some distance between themselves and, say, their full-time job. Maybe they can't quit, but some of these people can. And what they're doing are making supplements for an official game, like, Wizards of the Coast, Dungeons and Dragons. So there's as an ecosystem or like a marketplace from like a product point of view, it's pretty fascinating because, well, for instance, like the most famous of them all has to be Critical Role, and the amount of income and IP, and then of course eventually not merging properly, but having some of their lore introduced officially into Wizards of the Coast, but they've
I think Critical Role was definitely like the first, right? And it opened up a lot of different.
And it's this kind of idea.
I can't remember the name of the guy from Magic Mike who did Jocks Machina.
He was. You know how I know him? Yeah. What's his name? I know him as the werewolf, and
I think it's Joe Manganiello.
Joe Manganiello.
Yeah.
That's who it is. He was the werewolf in True Blood, and the love interest.
Correct. And like he has like jocks can love to play, kind of tabletop role playing games, and it's kind of a thing that came out of, tabletop. And I think it's a community now. Everyone's just seeing like, oh my god, it's possible. And tabletop, I just think like was just the opening of the door, because we've talked about it before, but I love like the Dungeons and Daddies podcast, which is a hilarious podcast, and Queens of Adventure, which was like Dungeons and Drag Queens, the live show kind of. And I just feel like everyone is supporting everyone. Everyone's kind of patronizing everyone. Is it patronizing? That sounds bad. I don't know.
I mean, I think technically patronizing in the sense that they are patronizing, like being their patrons, right? Supporting.
Yeah, supporting. But yeah, it's like there's this I love the fact that a gamer will support, hey, I like this game. Maybe it's Dungeons and Dragons or a tabletop role-playing game, and it's like, but here's a product that normal people are just making themselves that helps us play online. Yeah. Or here's like some dice, or here's some 3D models that you can buy. There's a lot of 3D modeling that's in this community too.
Yes.
That is, you can go to Thingiverse or other places to where people are like, hey, you can totally have my models for free and download them. I'm just asking, like, share it with people. And hey, there is a Patreon or donate kind of button, and it's like 70 cents for a 3D model, So, but I can print that and make my castles at home, or I can print things as a game developer, new pieces that I need to test out a game, or it's teeth for cosplay, or like, whatever. Design Thinking Games is an affiliate of Space Engineers. Space Engineers is a sandbox game about engineering, construction, exploration, and survival in space and on planets. To find out more about Space Engineers or its new DLC, Warfare 2, go to designthinkinggames.com/Space Engineers, or just go to our website and click on the banner.
I literally paid $2.50 for an iPhone app called We Croak, which just reminds me once a day that I'm going to die. Like, it's stupid.
That is morbid. That is very morbid.
And
why do you do that?
Well, because, the world is incredibly neurotic right now. We who work in tech, and especially in startups, are among an incredibly anxious peer group for whom, every day is a struggle. You never know if you're going to be employed the next month or whatever. These are very like first world or tip of the first world problems. But because there's so much, there's so much going on in this space, and it requires a sort of self-obsession and obsession with the space. It benefits me to benchmark my emotions, so that I can navigate this incredibly kind of like neurotic.
What do you mean by benchmark?
Oh yeah, like I try to ground myself and realize that you can wake up and say like, oh my God, I have so many problems. Like this piece of code is so difficult. This client is super needy. Everybody is on fire all of the time, and they're running around 100%. With their fire hands, and you're at risk of catching fire yourself. But like the idea of like this little app, this We Croak, is the same idea of like, like stoicism behind it. It's that, hey,
Just to remind you to live in the present and that you only have so many days left.
Yeah, and it's not so many days. This could be your last. So if you meditate, or if you accept that, hey, this might be the last time, Tim, you and I talk, let's make sure that whatever we chat about, like this kind of like type of conversation, is one that we can like look back on in the next 3 hours on our deathbeds and be like, man, that was a pretty good use of my time. Could I have used it better? I don't know, but it's not a question of regret, right? So if you're gonna walk outside and get hit by a bus, at least make sure that you are prioritizing the things that really matter. And I gotta be real, like, work in that context doesn't matter. Like the problems of the client, they don't matter. And that's kind of, so it's kind of morbid, but it's liberating. And it means that, oh my God, there's so much shit going on, but I am going to spend an hour talking about like games and the community and whatever. I don't know how people like fucking survive like in like constantly contemplating the future. I've trained myself to turn that part of me off. It's an effort to keep sanity. I mean, just like playing games, like you can play games to process emotions like that dragon cancer, or you can play games to escape. That's like, that's what I do with like Thanes and like these little single player RPGs that I don't have anyone to play with, but I'm just putting my brain into I'm stepping foot into like the shoes of 1,000-year-old vampire.
Yeah.
And but it's about, enjoying what you can, especially now. It's better just to live in the present. Right. So, we croak. If we can get in touch with the people who make We Croak, I would love to I will put together an amazing advertisement. I just wanted to remind you, Tim, and as we sign off, and all of our listeners to support Design Thinking Games on patreon.com/Design Thinking Games. If you are a small creator and you want to help us, a small creator, grow, you want to grow together, we have super affordable. We're talking like tens of dollars advertising that we would love to collaborate with you on. We're kind of active on social media. If that's your thing, jam those hearts. If you can star, heart, and favorite in your podcatcher of choice, like this episode or the show, that teaches the algorithm to shine a beacon on to Design Thinking Games. And if there's anything you take away from this conversation, perhaps it was a little diverting, but just don't forget, you are going to die, and it might be right now.
Thank you for listening to the Design Thinking Games podcast. You only have so much time, and it means a lot you shared it with us. To connect with your hosts, Michael or Tim, visit Design Thinking Games on TikTok, Twitch, and Twitter. DMs are open. You can also check out designthinkinggames.com, where you can request topics, ask questions, or see what else is going on. Until next time, game on.